No, not at all. You're alive and well. Thank goodness. There is one problem though that I realized after the fact. I never hit record.
All right.
So we had
So
a
it
good
says we're
conversation.
recording now.
Yeah, there you go. I hit the record button now, and I
Right.
mean, it was a good conversation. Definitely got us on the same page. But unfortunately, there was some good stuff in there that I didn't catch. So
If you want to rehash some of that, we can go over it. Or if you want to hit something new, we can. I'm not in a big hurry right now.
no, yeah, I've got about an hour or so. I've got time. We can rehash. The other thing I was going to suggest to you is you're a well-spoken man. You clearly know how to talk about this stuff. And do you do anything with regards to it? Do you write about it? Do you
I write about it in my journal, so I don't share it. At least I haven't yet.
Okay.
I was I don't want to say in preparation, but we were talking about it. I think we talked about it a couple of days ago. So I went back through my journals for the last 5 years, and I was just seeing, when did the ideas kind of start? The idea on the belief, emotion, and thought, the BETs, that started in 2013. That's the first time I drew a picture of it. And so I've been drawing different kinds of diagrams of it through the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I draw different kinds of diagrams. I put some of them on the Reddit page there, and I got some feedback on those. And I found like I was having to explain it more than I wanted to people that really weren't. Maybe they were drunk or stoned or something in the middle of the night, and like, dude, maybe we're not exactly trying to share the same level of interaction. And that was actually my whole thing on the whole Reddit thing was, there was some really good insights there. Maybe you had the same experience, but it was a one-room classroom. So I felt like we were talking to the same people over and over again, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I noticed the same. There's like certain individuals in that subreddit that you could have really good, I would say, meaningful, insightful conversations with. Yeah. And then there are others who would just come in and start saying like, well, there is no self. So how, you know what I mean? They would just come in with their view and they would try to insert and shoehorn their view into every conversation. And it's like, okay, that's your view. We're cool with that. Nobody's debating. Just go your own way.
I think that's the way, the rest of the world is, because you asked a little bit, have I thought through it, or have I written, or have I spoken on it? Not a whole lot. And that's one reason I was looking forward to talking with you about it is that I don't really have a whole lot of folks that I have readily accessible to talk about it with. And then, I'm online even with the Alan Watts group on Facebook. It's still, there's some people there that have some seriously deep insight. But there's, you get there, you got to sift through a lot. Yep. In other words, you got to sift through a lot. Maybe that's the nature of the beast. I mean, even like Oprah Winfrey, who I have a lot of respect for, she put on something that I found pretty inspiring on the internet on thing, and it was loaded with negative comments all the way down. Oprah Winfrey. And I was going like, man, if Oprah Winfrey can get downvoted, I guess Jesus was crucified. I guess the message is not always popular.
No, and if it is popular, it's probably not the right message. It's not the message you and I are talking about.
Yeah, so I like that we're on a relatively the same page, and we can maybe take it like this and keep moving it. Or even I got a buddy of mine that he's pretty set in his ways. He's a really good debater. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy talking with him. In fact, we've been friends for almost 50 years. So, it's nothing new. But I know that I've actually learned that thing we were talking about before is I don't do this anymore. I try to take this, and it frustrates him because he's no longer able to take his position against mine anymore. And I think that's pretty cool because I could never beat him. I could never beat him on facts, and I could never, because he's a very high detail-oriented person, so he can continue to pull the facts and pull the detail and pull the insight because he's a very, very bright guy. But if I keep moving the context up, that frustrates him, and so that's the way I can deal with him. But he's still a good debating partner that way.
Right.
But for the most part, it's not something you just bring up at at the pool, sitting around the pool at the or sitting around at the gym or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can be isolating to be sort of interested in the things that you and I are interested in for that reason, right?
One thing, I don't know if you found Rick Archer, with the Bat Gap. If you found him, he's got almost 500 interviews of people that are. He calls it Buddha at the gas pump, and it's just like regular, ordinary people for the most part. He's got some of the superstars in there, but for the most part, it's people you never heard of. And I found a lot of value there listening to that. He's a very, very good interviewer. They're about an hour to 2 hours apiece, and I've listened to virtually all of them.
Wow.
Watch them or listen to them. So that helps me to find different places or different websites or different people. Some of them are really, really insightful, and some of them are, maybe blowing smoke, or I don't exactly see it the same way they do. Some of them might be in over their heads early, because a lot of the teaching, is Ajishani, he's saying wait 10 years before you try to go out and try to talk to anybody about it. Or at least somebody said that. I don't know if it was Ajishani. So I'm at the end of the 10 years of thinking about it all on my own, and maybe I'm able to articulate it to a level that it kind of makes sense.
I certainly think so. I mean, again, it's hard to convey through YouTube comments and Reddit posts, but talking to you face to face, it seems like, like we're speaking the same language for sure. And I wasn't sure that was going to be the case. Because again, through comments and through text, it's really hard to pick up on tone, context. Like you were saying, like the content is there, but what's the context, right? It's really hard to get a sense of that in a short comment. So, but anytime you want to do this, I'd love to. And, if you want to start creating content, and whether it's written or video or whatever, like if you're looking for a partner, somebody to bounce off things, because I often find that having someone to converse with brings up a lot better points, or a lot more interesting points, than if I'm just talking to the camera by myself, right?
Sure, makes sense. Well, what I've got is a lot of those diagrams that I've drawn, and it's just the way my brain works. It's still trying to take the linear left brain stuff and convert it on over to the right brain, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not an artist by any means, but I use I just use PowerPoint to make these diagrams.
Right.
But they actually make some sense. So I can forward you some of those and just get your comments on seeing what you think about that. I think you'd agree, but what I would be interested in also is that maybe it's and did you think about this, and what if you put that in there, as opposed to trying to pick it apart.
Right.
You can pick it apart too.
No, I have no desire to do that. That's not my scene anymore.
Put a few of them up on the Awaken site.
Okay.
And people were going like, dude, that's not the way it is. I was like, okay, well, tell me how it is. Tell me what you think, or whatever. So I was trying to grow it, or trying to get it to get better, and share it. So yeah, we could do something like that also.
Yeah, well, I'm open to all of that. And, I think one of the reasons that I get along with a lot of people in these circles, and I don't often find a lot of disagreement, is because I think a lot of these things are true on one level. And just because if you move on to the next level, it's a different truth, it doesn't invalidate that at this level, this is true. Like, you know what I mean? Like at some level, there is cause and effect, undeniably, because if you start questioning your beliefs, that causes your beliefs to change, and it has this whole trickle-down effect. So at one level, you can look at it and go, well, yeah, cause and effect is true. But then if you move past that level to the next level, you see that it actually isn't. You know what I mean? So it can be both true and untrue. And so if you meet someone who only has half of that proposition and they're sticking to it, then all of a sudden, if you can get into a kind of a debate or a conflict with them. But for me, it's like, no, I agree with you. You're right. There is no cause and effect, but there is, kind of, in a way. You know what I mean? Like, so I can hold both positions at once, and I don't feel the need to win or debate one over the other. I think that they're both true to some extent.
Well, I agree, and also what my line of reasoning on that is that my views have changed dramatically over the last 15 years. And I can see where people are, and I can go, yeah, well, I was there and I believed it, and that was true when I was there. So that's cool. And I don't try to tell them they're wrong. No. I just I know I can understand. I have compassion, or I have a understanding about how you see that or how you feel about that. And so that's kind of cool to be able to do that. And then I can suggest, or would you consider, or had you thought about this? And I'm not like some sort of guru, but I can tell if it's starting to, well, I never really thought about that, or no, that's not the way it is. Then you can push it a little bit further, or you can just stop it right there.
Yep.
Yeah. So my kids now, I see my kids, my adults are 19, 21, and 23.
Nice.
So we have some of these kinds of conversations about, about cause and effect and time and God. And we have these cool kinds of conversations, but I can sort of tell when I'm getting to and they kind of look at me like, I don't know. And I say, well, maybe it's time to just stop right there.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're going, and it's like, I'm good, and I lost them.
Right. Exactly right.
Yeah, like there's some people that are comfortable taking it to a certain point, and then if you go further than that, they're like, no, I don't like that. I don't want to hear about that.
Usually the look on the face, you can kind of tell it's going there.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a group on Facebook. It's called the 1,000 Paths because, the idea is that all these different traditions kind of come together here, and we're open to all these different approaches, right, to living well. And there are people in that group who can go like sort of what you were talking about with regards to the cognitive aspect of, the beliefs effects on the emotions. They're all about that. They're all about the Zen. But then as soon as you get to like the non-dualistic, like, well, there is no separation between yourself, your environment, others, the universe, then it's like, no, I don't want to talk about that because it's not practically useful. They don't want to hear about it. So you have all these different sort of appetites for it, but not everyone's into the whole meal. They just want maybe just the entree, and then they're like, I'm good with that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine. He was a Sunday preacher, and I asked him not too long. We teach together corporately, so we do corporate speaking together. We teach communication skills, presentation skills, strategic planning, a lot of the just, I don't want to call it standard stuff because we're really good at it, but I'm talking about, I say that in jest, but that's what we do. But I asked him, are you still doing the Sunday preaching? And he's like, no, I'm not really doing that. And I was like, and we took it a little bit because we're good friends. And he was like, I said, people just want to be babysat kind of on Sunday. Is that right? And he's like, that's exactly what it is. He said they come in, they just want to hear a little bit, and they don't want to necessarily take it. And he wants to keep talking about different stuff. He wouldn't mind keep moving a little bit or stretching them a little bit. But a lot of times, at least where his church, he was of a church.
Yeah.
They had actually rotating pastors, and maybe you're familiar with that. So they had 4 different pastors that would come in pretty much once a month, and they would rotate through these pastors. So they were lay pastors, I guess.
Right.
And so he said that he couldn't hang with that because people were just trying to come in and unload their guilt for an hour and a half on a Sunday morning and go about their business. They weren't interested in pursuing it further, which is where his passion was.
Right.
So I think we're saying the same thing that way. About now, tell me a little bit more about the different things that you do with the groups, because you said you spoke yesterday, and I've seen a couple of your videos where you're in front of something.
Yeah.
Really clear what that is.
Yeah, it's a Unitarian Universalist church, right? So the one that I spoke at yesterday was it's a lay-led one, so they always have different members of their community doing the talk or whatever you want to call it. Some of them call it a sermon, and I'm like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. I don't do sermons. I just talk.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Unitarian Universalism. So I think it came from Christian roots a long time ago. The Unitarians were a sect of some denomination. The Universalists were another sect. And then, and somewhere in the mid 1900s, they merged, and they really they've moved away from, a lot of congregations have moved away from a Christian approach, and they're really just a non-denominational sort of spiritual community. But that's where I've done some speaking, and I've been fortunate enough to have at my church where I go to, there's a couple reverends there, and they've sort of they've been very open to new ideas, and the community has been open, because the stuff that I talk about whenever I get up there is not the typical fare on a Sunday for that church. Sort of like what you were saying, a lot of the congregants there will want to stay inside their comfort zone. They don't want to be
and that's okay. That's a service that religion in general and churches in specific that specific they fulfill that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a need that's out there. So I'm not taking away from that at all. It wasn't right for a friend of mine. And whenever I would go to church, I would like, I don't want to do the singing. I don't want to do this. I want to hear the lecture. Yeah. Because I was just trying to do the mental part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, for some people, they're like, I don't want to hear the lecture. I just want to sing. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm with you. The singing is a hard one for me to adjust to, especially the hymns. Like if we were singing like Bob Marley or John Lennon, I'd be right up there. but it's all these, like, they sound really churchy and it's hard to get behind that. But, you know, and to be fair, I don't know that the congregation that I go to is doesn't want to be pushed or stressed. That's the impression I get from some of the reverends, because anytime there's a piece that you're going to deliver, there's always a lot of concern about not offending and not, you know, making people feel uncomfortable or bringing up traumatic experiences from the past. And my approach partially is to make people uncomfortable, because I think if we get too comfortable, that's when we get in trouble. We need to be shocked out of our complacency every once in a while. So I have to find the right balance between kind of taking risks with what I'm saying, but not too many risks that I lose it. So I've had some really good mentors there. So it's been good.
Good.
Yeah. But
one of the biggest paradigm things that I think people have trouble with is that we are all God, or we all have some of the infinite or the divine or whatever it is you want to call it. I'm not really wrapped around the axle about using the word God. I mean, I like the force or power, you know, all that is. I think all that, I think it's more like an electric current that's running through everything, as opposed to some dude sitting on a cloud.
Yeah.
So, it's not anthropomorphic at all for me at all.
Right.
I think I see the trees outside, and I see what is it making what force or what power or what electricity is it that's making that thing grow, and why did it grow into the one that an acorn make an oak tree and not a pine tree, or not a cat. You know, so I think that's all cool, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with the fact that I'm just a little piece of the whatever that thing is, trying to see from my point of view. So I sometimes play a little game with myself, and I go, well, this is God watching football.
Yeah,
football because we're watching football or whatever. You know, I have fun with it that way.
Yeah, so, and that word just has so many connotations.
It does, and I think that's why, you know, I can see the Buddha saying, you know, 2,600 years ago. I don't think it was that the Buddha didn't believe in some unifying thing. It's just that it had so much baggage already back then that he's like, you know what, we're just not going to talk about that, because you're going to get it wrong, or might get it wrong, and or attached to that. That was his big deal. Yeah. And so then I can see that. I can understand that.
Well, and there was some element of it too. Like, didn't he say it doesn't really make a difference either way, whether there is or there isn't? So why would I talk to you about that? Like, he was really concerned with the practical aspects, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So it doesn't really change the practical aspects of suffering and desire and all that stuff. Whether there's a God or not makes no difference. You're still going to experience suffering and all that if you're, you know, driven by desires and impulses. And so why talk about God?
Makes sense. Now, let me ask you, so you have not heard, or you haven't read a whole lot about David Hawkins? Have you not heard a lot about him?
I've heard a lot about him, and Jed McKenna is another one that is on my list. Yeah, I've heard of both of them, but I haven't read anything by them yet, no.
Okay. Well, the Hawkins thing, and that's as close to a framework as I have, because I've taken all of it. I've taken Lao Tzu and the Bhagavad Gita and Christ and Buddha, and I've taken them all in, and they all say the same thing to me. And I can make a list of all the things that are very similar, and I find comfort in that.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't disbelieve in any of it, and I believe that Krishna and Jesus and Buddha, I believe that they are all divine. That they were all when I say that, I figure that they had a direct connection that I probably don't have at this point in time, or at least I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I drew a picture of this too. Is that they just had a larger internet connection.
Yeah.
To whatever it is. You know, and I'm at a little sub-user station, and they got a bigger network, and they got a more ability that way.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of us that are down these levels, and there's like apostles, and it's just like a tree. It's just like a tree that goes down there. And there's some branches that are not connected. There's some that are distorted, and there's some that, when I say not connected, you got what my personal opinion, you got Jim Jones, and you got David Koresh, and these guys, and maybe some of the televangelists on TV. I can talk about them because they're dead, but they spun out, and they probably were no longer connected to the signal. You know, they became the terminal without a connection.
That's a good way to express it.
Yeah, that's my personal view. My other personal view from a practical standpoint is every single thing we invent is just a reflection of the reality. The internet is the same thing as your human brain.
Yeah.
And same thing as a highway network system. It's the same thing as the way that the blood vessels in your body work.
Yeah.
Everything is the same thing, kind of an expression of the same thing.
Yeah.
So when you start seeing those similarities, it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that way.
There's a lot of symmetry, isn't there?
Yeah. So back to Hawkins, I think that for me, that gives me a framework.
Yeah.
All right. So everything else kind of fits within that framework because it's the levels of consciousness, and it helps explain it in a way that I can understand, in a way that I can say, oh, okay, well, that person might be coming from a level that's kind of like right here or right here or right here. Mm-hmm. And there are these major paradigm jumps, which are equivalent to the ones in the Bhagavad Gita, when you got tamas and rajas and sattva, and then you get up to Atman up at the top. So they're saying that it's been around. It's not that it hasn't been these levels. These levels have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's got just a way of explaining it that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, well, like I said, he's on my list. I'll definitely check him out. Do you have a specific book that you'd recommend that would kind of encapsulate his theory or his
the first three. Okay. So he's written, I think, either 10 or 11 books. The first three are the understanding of kind of how it works. The power versus force is the first one, and that describes how he came about all this stuff. He's got a way of doing it scientifically. Nice. So if you have the left brain mind, he does it with kinesiology, and he proves his point with science. Yeah. It works that way. And I do some of my own calibrations. So if I'm listening to somebody and I go, does that sound right? And I'll actually calibrate it and say, yeah, that's truthful or it's not truthful.
Yeah.
And then so the next two books are really, really into the waking up and the levels and what you're going to personally experience. And then there's other ones that I like. Some of them I don't care for as much. I get it, and I just don't want to read them over and over. But right. And I read the first one, and that's the baseline. So I don't really have to feel like I have to read that one over and over. But the second and third one I've read over and over, like people read the Bible or the Quran or whatever. I find something different every single time I read it.
Wow.
And then there's 2 or 3 more that are in his series that I go back to.
Cool.
And McKenna's books, I've read them probably 3, 4, 5 times each, and I'm okay with. I don't know that I got to go back anymore, but it did take me a little while to absorb them, and I like that. I like his style. So I think that it's an irreverent style. It's actually very irreverent. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good. I forget what he calls it, but I like it. The his approach, and I can understand it.
Nice. And what does Jed McKenna deal with? Same subject matter, same ideas, or something totally different?
It's storytelling, and it's got a so his version of waking up is C-Rex as opposed to U-Rex. C-Rex is consciousness is everything, as opposed to the universe out there is everything.
Right.
Everything in here, and you're projecting it out, as opposed to it's out there and I'm looking at it and I'm bringing it back in.
Right.
So that it's essentially inside out. And that's a real good way. And he tells it in a very folksy way. So and when I say it's irreverent, he makes fun of people and he spiritually incorrect enlightenment or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, I like his approach. Now I don't necessarily agree 100% with the way he deals with everything, but that's, he probably okay, well, that's you and that's me.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what you said there about inside out, I've used that term a number of times to sort of explain or describe the shift that occurs, what some people call waking up, I guess, or whatever. Right. It's really a shift from living from the outside in to the inside out, right? So instead of allowing external forces and authorities to tell you how you should feel, what you should value, what the truth is, what is beauty, et cetera, all of a sudden this shift occurs where you realize that you're the one who gets to decide those things, right? And you get to live for those things, and you're the arbiter of your own sort of values and stuff. And so it's this shift from worrying about what people are thinking to worrying about what you think, right? Worrying about what you look like to worrying about your character or your psyche, whatever, right? So it's this kind of almost 180-degree turn in a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, so there's in Hawkins' work, there's 2 major paradigm shifts. It's and in the Bhagavad Gita, it's the shift from the 3 gunas, and he just describes it in modern day terms. But the big shift for me is the brain can only take you so far.
Yeah.
Logic actually tops out.
It does.
And this is where a lot of the atheistic crowd, Sam Harris and the material reductionists, they top out and they can't break the barrier. And you're going like, well, I can see why you would say that, because you haven't broken through the barrier.
That's right.
And if you don't question those beliefs, you won't.
That's right.
Okay? So if you're hitting a barrier, if you're hitting if you're bumping your head up against the bottom of this next paradigm, in my view, you question your beliefs and you keep questioning those, and you go, oh. Now, I've been influenced a lot by a lot of different people. I think I mentioned this to you a while back on the subreddit. I started out in the self-help world.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I came from. I read literally over 1,000 self-help books. Right? I read the first one I picked up was Think and Grow Rich. And I went, wow, this is cool. And probably the second one was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then I just started gobbling those things up, and I couldn't stop. I was reading, 5 or 6 a week for 10 years at least. So I got, 1,000 books or something that I read that way. And at some point that works in that middle level. You're actually cause and effect. You make a change and it changes and you get better at it. You're polishing your skills. But at some point, you're polishing the ego. And so all self-help, in my view now, from where I am looking at it now, the self-help movement is helping you polish that ego, and that's fine if that's what you want. The manifest your own everything, and just think thoughts, and then everything's going to be
the secret.
What?
The secret? Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's taking a concept and trying to sell it to the masses.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But a lot of people buy it. And Esther Hicks, I think the message is beautiful. But I think when you try to monetize it and go, here, listen to this because you're going to get richer, or listen to this because you're going to get what you want. So all the way back to the Bhagavad Gita and all of that is like, just do this and don't worry about the foods.
That's right.
Focus on the thing that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
You follow your joy, and you take that as far as you can, because that's what your dharma is. That's what your karma is.
That's right.
You burn off the karma by doing your dharma.
That's right.
And maybe you showed up here. I buy and sell houses too. So when we buy and sell, I like to fix stuff. I like to fix things. I buy and sell, and I do. So when I fix things, I am joyful. I like to fix things.
Yeah.
I'm sitting around on a Saturday and I haven't fixed something yet, man. I'm starting getting itchy and nancy. But that's who I am. I like to fix it. So I'm following my joy by doing that. Yeah. And then if I get paid for it, great. If not, I get the satisfaction out of fixing something.
Yeah, no doubt.
So those are some of the threads that kind of keep me going. And all the threads that I have, I feel like have bases in the in all the different spiritual ways of going about it.
Yeah.
Another person that has influenced me a whole lot, as you can probably imagine, is Byron Katie. Her work, it overlays beautifully and it integrates perfectly with the BET. Mm-hmm. In fact, her 4 questions actually are exactly going through. I'm doing it the other way around now. The B's and the E's and the T's. Yeah. 4 questions go beautifully on top of that. They overlay what I already thought. And I went, oh, perfect. So if anybody says, how can I do this on a practical level? I just say, just read Byron Katie's books or watch her videos.
That's awesome.
It is beautiful and it's gorgeous the way she's done it. And now her latest stuff is very, very, very non-dual. Her last book is, if you didn't understand non-duality, you're probably going like, what is she talking about? But I was picking up on it and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The other thing that might overlay really effectively over top of your scheme is this sort of cognitive behavioral therapy triad, right? Thought, feeling, emotion, or thought, feeling, behavior, right? And it's kind of the same thing, but just put differently, right? You can look at it in many different ways. You can come up with different models, but it all really describes a similar process.
It does. And so that's back to, I thought I was thinking this thing in my brain and I thought I had my own ideas. And then all of a sudden I come up with, everybody else already thought of this stuff, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that everything for me, it all boils down to allow and love. I think I wrote down a couple of emails or the responses. Well, all of those things kind of boil down to it. Well, the Bhagavad Gita says that, Jesus said that, forgive and love. and everybody, all the different things say it in different ways.
Yep.
They all say the non-attachment and enjoy and follow the passion, all that, all those things. Even Bashar, the guy from outer space, are you familiar with Bashar? You know what I'm talking about? Bashar is a guy that's like he's channeling. He's an alien.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't really matter. The message is similar to all these other messages, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, you know, I read I think the first book by L. Ron Hubbard, like the first book of Scientology that he wrote, and I was about halfway through it, and I put it down and I said, "Where are all the aliens? Where's all?" He was, you know, I later found out he was friends with Aldous Huxley, who wrote the Perennial Philosophy. Yeah. So now all of a sudden it's starting to click. Wait a second. Old Hubbard is peddling these sort of ancient wise truths to get people to buy in, because as soon as you start doing what he's talking about, you're going to notice results, because it's true. It works. That's how cults do it, though. They start with the stuff that makes sense and works and feels good, and then they come in with the aliens when you're already sold. But yeah, like you're saying, this guy who channels aliens, a broken clock can be right twice a day, you know? Just because you're crazy doesn't mean you're not saying things that make sense. And even L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology had some good stuff. So you never know, right?
You can take a couple of things out of there and say, yeah, that works for everybody. So yeah. So those were some of the influences that I had along the way.
Nice.
And so when I say that I've written a lot, and I will share some of these diagrams with you and some of the insight that I put there together, if it makes some sense. But what I get out of it is sometimes, not sometimes, very often, I'll think something and I'll write it down. I'll have it in my journal, maybe draw a picture of it, and then the next day or 2 days or a week later, I'll see it someplace else, and I go, dang, I thought that was my thought, and so maybe I guess not. So yes, cognitive behavior therapy, that was out there. I'm not trying to claim that I copied it, but it's very similar.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say that you copied it at all. I mean, I think it's remarkable when you come up with something on your own without being influenced by anything, and then you go out and discover that, wait, actually, this is old news. A lot of people know about it. To me, it validates to some extent what I've discovered, because like you know, I had this experience in 2013 that I've talked about a little bit in the video, and afterwards I don't know why, these words popped into my head and I started reciting them like a mantra. It was cultivate positive thoughts. I would just repeat that to myself, because it was like, you can't just will yourself to be happy, but you can cultivate the kinds of thoughts that will make you happy. So I was doing that a lot. And then I typed it in the Google search engine and I discovered James Allen, as a man thinketh, right? Whether he puts in bad seeds or good seeds, it will bring fruit. And I was like, crap, I thought I was being all original with cultivating and my farming analogy. And it's like, damn it. But James Allen, another good one, right? I mean, forefather of self-help, and had a lot of things in that book that were tremendously helpful for me. So it worked out in the end. But yeah, it's funny when you think you've got some original idea and it's like, no such thing, my friend.
Yeah. But it's actually, it's also encouraging and comforting to me. Is that I'm tapped into that, and there are probably some universal truths that actually are that cross cultures and go through time. If you're tapping into those things, and you're probably not on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and in fact, talking like to you today, you know, I'm going to post this video that I did yesterday at this church, but the first leg of our conversation where we were talking about all these different things, it's like, I hope you'll watch the video, because it's like, again, like a day ahead of what we talked about. It was like right in line as we're talking. I was like, crap, perfect. I was just talking about this. So, great. But again, it's, I think we do attract each other. I've met a number of people since I started my channel, like yourself, who are into similar things or who are, you know, on the similar path, and I've connected with them. And it's like, it's remarkable talking to these people across space and time, cultures, whatever, and hearing the exact same experiences or very similar experiences, or hearing the same ideas just spoken back to you. And it's like, I'm not alone. There are lots of other people out there like us.
Right. Well, one thing is that, you know, you got a couple of different kind of cases where people just get dumbfounded and then they wake up. Eckhart Tolle was one. He one night he went through a catharsis and he woke up, and took him a couple years to reintegrate back. And a couple other people that are either Ramana Maharshi, he was, you know, fell over when he was 16 or 17, thought he was dead. And then, so some of these are spontaneous.
Yeah.
So there are a few instances of this spontaneously waking up. Byron Katie was one. She was in a halfway house and laying on the floor, and the roach crawled across her foot, and all of a sudden her world completely changed. It's a cool story.
Yeah.
So there are some of those, and I would think to myself, well, I haven't had anything anywhere near like that, but I went through my journals the last 5 years, and I wrote down some things that had happened, and I went, I better write this down, because if I can track it and I can go, yeah, those are similar kinds of things that people say when they completely blow open and they go, I couldn't even function. Yeah. Right? Maybe I couldn't function for a few minutes, and then I just kind of went back to being old Grego or whoever I am.
Yeah.
Then that way, but I did. I wrote them all down. And then I go back and I go, well, there is a series of these things that have been happening, and that it was enjoyable to read and go back and look to do that. So I'm thankful that I took time to do that.
Do you have an example, maybe like one of these types of things that you wrote in your journal, and looking back on it, you're like, oh yeah.
Well, yes, a couple of them were dreams. And I woke up, and they woke me up. So a couple of them were in dreams, and very profound dreams. And then a couple of them, actually, several of them have been when I'm driving in the car, and some of them happen to be on the same road in the same location, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I'm driving in the same road in the same location, and I'm either be thinking of something or hearing a song or something, and I'll break into tears. That's the way it happens to me. I get chills, and I'll break into tears, and then I'll start laughing hysterically. So that is kind of and I go, oh man, holy smokes, I can't believe that. And it's not to the place where I can't function. I'm going to crash into somebody, but it happens just like that. It's chills, then it's tears, and then it's laughter, and it's happened at least 10 times.
Wow.
So, and all within maybe a mile of where the same location. So
that's interesting.
And it's not necessarily triggered. A couple of dreams I've had. One is that I think that Jesus is one of those. I'm not. That's the only guy, and I'm Jesus. And if you don't believe in Jesus, you're wrong and you're going to hell. That's not me. But I do think that Jesus was up there on that top tier. Yeah. Up there, closest to the human experience can get. Well, I was having a dream, and I was a slave. I was being taken off of a slave boat, and I was being brought into a wooden room that was where all the other slaves were. We were chained together, and then this thing that I knew was Jesus sat down next to me, touched me on my knee, and then everything turned white, and I went, "Whoa, that was Jesus that just sat down." That was kind of cool, and I woke up.
Wow.
So I don't. So some of these, and some of them are just dreams that I've had, like running away. A lot of people have dreams about running away, but lately my dreams have been, and if you have dreams about you running away, you might be running away from a problem. You might be running away from something you're worried about. I've had dreams of running away from something my whole life, but lately, the last 5 years, in my dreams, I stop and I turn around and I go, okay, what? All right, come on. And then it disappears or vaporizes. And I'm going like, well, maybe that's something that's going on that way. So I'm not all the way there yet. I'm still on the journey.
Oh yeah. I think we all are. I mean, I think even, Jesus and all the people that you listed before, I think they had reached maybe the highest pinnacle that a human can reach. Maybe not, who knows? But, it's unlikely for us, I think, to reach those pinnacles. We might, but again, the goal is not to reach a pinnacle. It's just to be on the journey and to enjoy every minute of it as best as you can. And like you said, to take what comes and to choose your own reactions to these things and to choose your course as best as you can. One of the things that I wanted to touch back on, you're talking about the expansion of context. When you question one set of beliefs and they dissipate, you expand it. Do you find that, to tie it in with the whole idea of free will and the ability to choose, when your context is this big, you may have 3 or 4 options. When you expand your context, all of a sudden, all these new possibilities open up that you didn't know existed before. So you have more choices that you can make because you are aware of a different sort of level of the context, right? Mm-hmm. It seems to me that every time you expand it, you realize, like, so for instance, my whole life, I never realized I could actually choose my reactions to things. Like I thought like, well, of course I'm going to get angry. That guy called me an asshole. That's who, of course I never knew. So my context was this big, and within this context, I had no choice. But as soon as I expanded it, now I realized, wait, I do have a choice. I can question my reaction. I can question my belief. So do you think that you gain more choices as you expand or elevate your consciousness, whatever metaphor you want to use?
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to think about that, because here's what I found so far. So far is if you question a belief and you kind of go through that circle thing I was talking about, beliefs, emotions, thoughts, stop here and question that belief, and you won't go around again, and maybe you go up. So if you question that belief, typically that's just going to uncover another belief.
Right.
Okay, so the answer is that there's an infinite number of beliefs, at least for me so far. I mean, if you get all the way out to the edge of your belief, I wrote this down in big bold letters, is belief is the only thing is the only thing between you and God.
Yeah.
It's your beliefs, because that's all we are, is just a bundle of beliefs.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in that kind of a context, that's what makes us who we are. Yep. It's what makes us our unique position, our unique point of view, our unique perspective is that bundle of beliefs. So and it's part of the ego. And if we didn't have an ego, you wouldn't be able to function in society. So I don't think that we're trying to slay the ego. I think we're just trying to put it in its proper place and still have a personality and still have a sense of humor and all that. But what it does is that it continues to bring up new beliefs that you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
And they continue to surface. So if you say there's an infinite number on that level, I don't know if didn't look at it that way, but I do know there's an infinite number that I keep encountering.
Yeah.
And so whenever you expand that context, now you're going to see a different set of beliefs that probably surround that, and you're going to have to question a bunch of those before it's not just one belief, boom, belief, boom.
Very true.
It's a series of beliefs. Yeah. So I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. As you're taking those tangled webs apart, you're starting to clear. It's almost like you're making more room inside yourself, and you can actually see more clearly in a way, right?
One of the things that Adyashanti says that I love is it's melting from the middle, and my drawing goes like this.
Yeah.
You know, when I draw it on paper or on the screen, and that's what it is. It's melting from the middle. So the ego is really thick. Our beliefs are really thick, and instead of peeling the onion from the outside, it's actually peeling it from the inside.
Yeah, interesting.
I love that. It feels so wonderful. Is melting from the inside.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
A former shell of yourself, so people can still recognize you and say, "Hey, Grego," or whatever. But I sometimes go to reunions and I go, do they even? I wonder if they even know that I'm not even anywhere close to the same guy that I was. I'm not trying to say that I'm not that guy anymore. I appreciate who I was, and it got me to where I am. But I don't think the things I used to think, and I don't believe the things I used to believe. So that's something I'm still dealing with and still grappling with.
And when did that start to happen for you? Like, were you basically just living what you would call a non-spiritual or a normal quote unquote life, and then did something happen to start triggering these realizations? Or
so everybody probably has some level of the door knocking even louder, and mine was a financial crisis. I was in the real estate industry, still am.
Yeah.
I was in the real estate industry, and my world crashed as hard as anybody's could crash. So I had real estate developments all over my local area, and they vaporized. They froze first, and then they vaporized. So and it took a long time for that to thaw out. And I was so connected with them, I couldn't just go get a job at a big software company. I had to babysit these things until they were gone, and that took 5 years. So in that period of time, I was reading, a whole bunch of still on the self-help stuff.
Yeah.
And probably the thing that crossed me into thinking about more than self-help, a little bit of John Maxwell. He's a popular. He was a preacher, and he popularizes self-help stuff, and he had Failing Forward and leadership books and that kind of stuff. But Wayne Dyer is a guy who kind of goes on both sides of that, and Oprah is another one that is popularized and got a lot of followers that probably have no idea that she's actually coming from a much higher spiritual place than she might appear to be.
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer, toward the end, he was clearly walking in those on the spiritual side.
Yeah.
But he started out in the self-help world. I'm okay, you're okay, and all that kind of stuff, or whatever his books were. I don't remember.
Sure.
But he was in that self-help world for a while. He started going onto the spiritual side. So some of his books helped me to transition on over.
Nice.
And he starts mentioning people like Anita Moorjani and some of these others, and he brings in the Tao Te Ching, and he brings in the Bhagavad Gita, and he starts talking about that, and I go, oh, I can look at that too.
Yeah.
It wasn't him single-handedly, Wayne
No.
Dyer, but he's one that kind of is in both worlds.
Yeah, and he's an interesting guy. I haven't read much of him, but one of the first things that I got from him was his version of the Tao Te Ching, because it's he stitched it together from all these different translations, and he's got these little affirmations on each page, and I was like, no, that's pretty cool. So I gave it a shot, and it's a good translation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've read some translations of the Tao that made me think, what is this book?
Right.
It's like one of my, it's top 3, I would say, in terms of influential spiritual books in my life. I read it every year, but there are some translations that I just want to throw them on the fire. It's like, what is this?
That's interesting. Also, is that a lot of the what we're going to call text or sacred or scriptures or whatever, if you try to read them, if you try to go back and read them in there's many translations. There's many translations of the Bible. There's many translations of the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching, and you go like, I could read 5 different versions and get 5 different stories of any of them, really. So,
very true.
So we have to, process that in our perspective and realize that people may actually. I got a family member who was just strictly the Bible is the only way, and if you don't believe in the Bible, you're going to hell, kind of thing.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people that can use their version of the scriptures as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I know you know what I'm talking about. So if you're using your scriptures as a weapon, then maybe you're looking at it a little differently than I do, anyway. So
you missed the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I try to. Probably a couple thousand books into it now, so I've probably got my own flavor to it or my own approach to it. Sure. I'm not trying to. If I can share whatever it is I have, if I can just share and talk to somebody about it, I'm not trying to convert anybody or trying to make a buck off of it necessarily, because I don't have any books, I don't have any product.
Nope.
So I'm not trying to push anything, but I do like talking about it.
Well, let's talk about it some more, and I think your diagrams, if you want to share some of them.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we could do you could almost do like a lecture, so you can explain the diagram as well and give some of the examples that you used in our conversation, because I think it's important to give people real life concrete examples, or else it's just abstract, and it's it might sound nice, it might make you feel good, but it certainly isn't going to help you next time you start to feel angry or depressed or et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to email back and forth and we can plan some stuff out, I'd love to work with you, because like you, I'm not doing it for profit, obviously. All I got is these cheesy videos, but I think it's good for people to talk about this stuff, and especially with your approach.
I appreciate. I mean, I looked on your thing today. Maybe I think you got 245 of them or something already, and that's
videos.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh really? Jeez, I've been a busy guy.
In the past year, so I mean that's a platform, not monetizing platform, but that gets you momentum and that gets you moving, and if you love doing it, then keep doing that. So for me, I look back and I got stacks of journals. So that's I've been doing the same thing, just in different media. Yeah. So I wouldn't certainly mind sharing some of those to you. Just see what you think and maybe see if we can. Make them better even.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm just all about sharing the wealth, and I love working with other people who are somewhat in line with what I'm doing. And I would say you're more than somewhat. I mean, your whole approach, everything you're saying is like, no, I completely agree. Like, just talking about it is fun, right? I mean, it's you don't need to reward
something that you disagree with. I don't know.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually, but I think even knowing what I know now, even if we do disagree on things, that they're going to be pretty minor. And I think the more detailed we get into our conversations, the more likely we are to find points where we disagree.
But if we disagree, I'll be going like, oh, I never thought of that.
So I have to look into this more. Yeah, no, I'm the same way.
I'm gonna have to question my belief.
Yeah, well, hey, I love people who can make me do that as well, because like I said, I don't take anything as certain. I think the greatest sin is certainty, in a way, because it's how can you possibly be sure of anything? The more you know, the more you realize you can't be sure of anything, right? It's like, especially in the scientific world, the more you learn scientifically about the universe, you get to the quantum level, or you start talking about black holes and black matter and black energy. They make up 75% of the known universe. We have no idea what it is.
Right.
Right? How can you be so arrogant as to be certain of anything when you know that we don't know anything? Right? Anyways, no, it's a good approach.
Listen, I'm gonna get rolling. It's dinner time here.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks a lot for chatting, and let's email back and forth and come up with a game plan.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate the invitation, and was looking forward to it, and had a good time. I enjoyed it.
We'll do it again. Thanks a lot, Grego.
Talk to you later.
Cheers.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.